So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Cecilia Bonefeld-Dahl. I am the Director General of Digital Europe, and thank you so much for the invitation to this great event from KIGIT, one of our membership organizations. I'm honored to speak right after the Prime Minister and really looking forward to contribute to your event. These are very special times, and I will get back to that. So who is Digital Europe really? I mean, we represent, as I said, 36,000 companies across Europe, digitalizing industries from pharma companies over banks, manufacturing companies, and of course the traditional ICT companies, software, hardware, artificial intelligence. And we have 40 organizations all around Europe, of course also in Poland, a very important European country. So we work on semiconductors, we work on cloud, we work on data, we work on investment, and lately we have actually been successful in having EU fund 150 billion euros in the digital transformation of Europe. These are very special times, and I don't want to continue this speech without saying that I give all my support to you, the Ukrainian people. And I think we have failed to include them in our great European Union in time. Digital Europe and the digital industry has really been standing together on this. And right after the attack started, we issued a statement that sanctions are not enough. We need immediate support for cybersecurity and, of course, immediate support for making the citizens of Ukraine safe and the refugees that are coming to our countries. I know that many of my Polish colleagues are really helping the refugees in personal ways, opening their homes, etc. But the industry also carries a great responsibility. These are well-educated, great ICT specialists. They are well-educated, democratic European citizens, and we embrace you and we will support you. So one of the things that we are asking for is a strengthening of EU's capabilities to react in cyber attacks. Ukraine has basically been weakened over the last few years with constant attacks on their infrastructure, meaning this is really warfare. So how can we make sure that in EU that we work together? This is not a national matter, because cybersecurity does not care about borders. That we have a common European cyber defense, that we build resilience in our chain of commands, and that we can defend our borders. We need the cybersecurity center in Romania to become reality, and we need to move fast. And we need all the nations of EU to lean in and not lean out, Poland including. I think we have seen developments in Poland that have not always been positive. Distancing of EU is not the time right now. You need to lean in, we need to stand together. Another ask that we did is, of course, fast-track visa applications for all Ukrainian. And maybe, who knows, if it goes really, if it gets even worse, maybe even from other Eastern European countries. Please, Poland and all the Polish politicians in the room, lean in, help us, let's unite in these times of crisis. So with that, let me turn to the subject of this great event on the green transition. I mentioned that we actually had 150 billion euro coming from the EU supporting the digital transformation of the countries. But we actually also have 35% of the EU Resilient Fund dedicated to the green transition. So now it's time for governments and for businesses basically to tap into those investments, but also to start thinking about how can we bring down CO2. And I can tell you that the use of digital technologies has the potential of saving 10 times as much CO2 as it generates. There's been a lot of talk on the data centers. Actually, the data centers is one of the most biggest efficiency drivers. We have been leading in how to bring down CO2 and how to use renewable energy for the data centers for ages. But it is also true that with the digital transformation comes more data. And with more data come more storage and more need for data centers. Right now, the data centers are standing for around 1 to 2% of the emissions. But you can see other industries, like, for example, agriculture, one of the biggest polluters, and definitely something that is worth to look at for Poland. And buildings, for example, buildings stand for 40% of all CO2 emissions in Europe. How do we make sure that we use artificial intelligence, digital twins, when we actually build the buildings, when we monitor the energy consumption, and when we do maintenance at the buildings? These type of examples you can find in all industries. And of course, we have to do our part with the data centers and with our pollution, but through the use of the digital technologies, we really enable other sectors to transform. And this is why we are building councils with leaders from manufacturing companies together with leaders of ICT companies to create those visions in digital Europe across the European continents. So we published a lot of, there's a lot of talk about how do you do this and do you have examples? And we took that challenge up, and we 3 months ago, we published a thought leadership piece called Digital Action is Climate Actions, where there are 10 concrete ideas for governments and of course for businesses on how to approach the greening of the economy in not like a cost driver, but really an efficiency driver. And we give multiple examples of how this can actually be done. Let me drill down to a few of the examples. So here, of course, when we look at the KPIs, we need to set some very clear KPIs. The Commission, for example, have set a target that to bring down those 40% of CO2 coming from buildings with 60% towards 2030. Let me talk about this in a bit more examples. So when we look at how we can use AI algorithms and interoperable data sets of high quality in manufacturing processes, one of the things that we saw was that Poland actually facilitated an e-factory, and we were able to do 10% savings in energy use and creating an ROI over 1.5 years. So this means these are exactly the type of projects that we need. Companies, sectors working together, building data spaces, applying artificial intelligence on where are the energy efficiency gains that we can actually obtain in our industry. And Poland has been leading on this work together with Germany, the 4.0. Keep up the good work and become kind of the cradle of how to save energy in the manufacturing sector together with Germany and other big manufacturing countries in the EU. This is what we're going to spend the money at. This is exactly why we have half of the 750 billion coming towards digital and green. So a big cadeau to Poland and to these great initiatives, actually leading the way for the rest of Europe on manufacturing. Another example is 5G and spectrum and how we can basically give an infrastructure that facilitates large amount of data also at a larger distance in harbors with ships. And for example, the port of Livorno in Italy, they saved 250 billion and 8.2 CO2 emissions and increased their efficiency of a production with 25%. So what they do, they actually did 5G enabled remote control of machinery and ground vehicles. Again, a great example on how we can actually apply technology directly in saving CO2, but also money. So a third example is actually within automotive and transportation, where we had a Polish startup, Tublux, improving AI-based vision software for smart cities. And it was a clear chance to tap into a global green tech market, which is growing nearly 10% every year. So we actually know that in EU, only 8% of our SMEs trade across one border. We still have too much fragmentations. We still need the governments, our national leaders, to work together to remove the barriers. So great green tech companies like this can actually grow across border. It should be as easy doing business in Poland, Denmark, Germany. It should be like their home market. Let's make sure that we remove those barriers. And I urge Poland, the Polish leaders, of course, with the rest of the council, to look at these great challenges and why is it that it's so difficult still for these companies to grow across border? They are there. We can actually create world standard company in green tech if we actually allow them easier access to their European markets. So with this, these were 3 great examples of how we basically can, one, utilize these funds that we have had. It's actually nearly 50%, it's more than 55% of the 750 billion that came in the recovery package from EU is aimed at boosting these type of projects, these type of companies. And this is exactly what it is about. It's about greening other sectors, buildings, ports, transportation, agriculture, not least, and how to apply digital technologies right into that to save the energy. It's much more fun to do it this way than it is through tax. So let's try to really move forward in the green and digital transition towards 2030. So with that, I thank you. Thank you so much for your attention. Only 2 messages from me. Europe, lean in. Everybody, let's lean in. Let's support Ukraine. Let's support our Eastern European friends who are not yet a member of EU to become a member of EU. And of course, let's make that green and digital transformation go hand in hand. We have the money. We have the innovation. We have the market. We need to remove the barriers of the companies growing there. But let's just do it. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for inviting me.